This next chapter is all about creating complex forms of artwork, and we're going to start that off by learning about something called compound paths. Compound paths inside of Illustrator allow you to create punch-out type shapes like you see here on screen. However, if you investigate a little further into the document, however, you will notice that these are all separate shapes. These are not combinations of shapes. So how do we combine these two together in order to punch a hole through that circle or make that square into a frame or cut out that star? We actually can use compound paths to do this. So let's select these two objects over here, and you can see this center is exactly what I say it is. It's a separate, complete object. And if I want to make a compound path out of this, I just go to the Object menu, go down to Compound Path, and select Make. When I do that, you're going to notice that this automatically now has a hole through it. If I move it over the square, you can actually see if I move it to the front that it will overlap, and you can see right through the middle of it. So let's move that over now. And let's do the same thing with this middle object here. In this case, what I'm going to do is use the keyboard shortcut, Command or Control 8 on my keyboard. And when I do that, you will notice that it automatically becomes one single shape with a unified color. If I move this over the star, and we'll arrange that. I'm just right-clicking and choosing Bring to Front. And you can see that it is one single shape, just like that. And finally, the star, we work much the same way. We can right-click on this as well, and we can go down and we can choose Make Compound Path. And when we do that, that is going to create this as well. The interesting thing about compound paths is when I double-click on the compound path, I can then go in and actually manipulate the individual objects inside of it. So I could increase the size of this star, for instance, or I could double-click to get out. I could go back into this square and I could resize the inner portion of this to make it a little more wide as well, or I could simply get rid of it. And when I get rid of it, it turns right back into a regular square. So these are all very flexible ways of creating these types of shapes. They're all very point and click type methods, but they work. And so if you need to create a basic type of shape like the ones you see here, try using a compound path to see if it won't help you get you where you're looking to go. The Pathfinder panel is probably one of the most popular panels in all of Illustrator, and also one of the most misunderstood. It's because a lot of people don't know exactly what the Pathfinder panel does. So in this movie, I'm going to walk you through my Pathfinder cheat sheet to help you understand exactly what the Pathfinder panel is all about. So let's go up to the window menu and go down to find Pathfinder, and that will bring it up for you on the screen. And when you have the Pathfinder on screen, you will see that it has two rows, the first of which is called Shape Modes, and the second of which is called Pathfinders. What we're going to do is we're going to select these groups of shapes, each one that has its own unique name underneath it, and we're going to perform that Pathfinder operation on those shapes so that you can see exactly what the Pathfinder panel does to that specific piece of artwork. So in this case, let's select the first one here just by clicking and dragging across. And then let's go up here to the shape modes and let's click on Unite. You will notice when I click Unite that everything merges together. It becomes one single shape. Now let's go to minus front. When I select those shapes and click minus front, you'll see when I hover over this, it says Option click to create a compound shape and subtract from the shape area. So I could actually throw in a modifier key here, but in this case, I'm just going to click it, and basically what it's going to do is subtract the front object from the back object. So you can see there that it basically just punches a hole through the underlying object. Intersect. Let's go ahead and click that. And now you can see that basically the only thing that is left once you click intersect is whatever intersected in between those two shapes, nothing on the outside. And then finally, exclude is going to be much like minus front, only this time you're actually going to get a few of those little points on the outside because it's just going to exclude any of the overlapping areas. Basically, exclude is the opposite of intersect. Now let's talk about the Pathfinder operations. These are some of the ones that I use most often. Let's go down and choose Divide first. Now when you see Divide, it might not be apparent as to what it's actually done, but if we zoom in on this piece of artwork here, you can see that there are small lines looking as if this thing has been cut in several places. And in essence, it has been. If we double-click to enter isolation mode, you can see now that I can select all of these pieces independently of each other. So I've divided, essentially, those two shapes into several shapes, and it's based on where they intersect with each other. I'll zoom back out and double-click the artboard to exit. Now let's go ahead and select Trim. And let's hit the Trim button. When I do that, you're going to notice that this basically turns it all into one shape, but trims everything around it. It's still a united shape, so I can move it, change it, do whatever I want with it, but everything is just trimmed off around the outside of it. Now let's go here and let's click on Merge. Merging is going to merge all of that together. There you see the Merge button, and so it just merges it together and now moves and acts as a single shape. If I select the Crop, it is going to basically crop everything around those edges there. So if I undo that, you can kind of see what it does. It basically acts as though this circle is a crop for that particular star. So when I hit crop, it's just going to crop it out, much the same as a photo would. Outline. If I choose outline here, it's just basically going to convert this into an outline shape. And then finally, the last one here, minus back, is going to subtract the back shape from the front shape, leaving only the points of the star. So there we go. That is a quick walkthrough of the Pathfinder cheat sheet. And as you can see, it has a lot of different possibilities and many things that can help you sort of create more complex versions of your artwork. That's one of the things that I do when I try to create artwork inside of Illustrator. I try to think in terms of simple shapes and then figure out how I can make simple shapes interact with one another through things like the Pathfinder panel and other tools like Shape Builder in order to get more complex artwork without having to do a whole lot of heavy lifting myself. In this movie, I'm going to be showing you how to use the paintbrush tool inside of Illustrator. Let's go to the File menu and choose New and hit OK to the defaults. Doesn't matter how big or how small this document is. And then what I want you to do is go find the paintbrush tool over in the toolbar. You can press the letter B on your keyboard to get a hold of that. And the paintbrush tool works just like you have a paintbrush in your hand. So you can come out here and you can just start drawing away, much the same as you did with the pencil tool. You can just go like this and start to make objects on your screen. Once you're finished with that, it goes ahead and it applies a little bit of smoothing in some cases to adjust for the jerky mouse movement that you might have made. You will notice that by default, it does not automatically select the path that I just drew. Let me select all of this and delete it. You can also create closed paths with the brush tool. All you have to do in order to create a closed path is to draw your path, and as you near the end of it, hold down the Option or Alt key on your keyboard. Holding down the Option or Alt key will give you this small circle next to the paintbrush. Here it is without the circle, and here it is with the circle. Once you're ready to close the path, release your mouse, and then release your Option or Alt key. Illustrator now draws a fully closed path for you. I can select that with my selection tool, and you can see that it is completely closed. If I zoom in on that area where I held down the Option or Alt key, you can see there's no break. If I press Command or Control 0, it returns me to my normal view. Let's grab the paintbrush tool and let's draw another circle over here. And this time I'm not going to hold down the Option or Alt key. I'll go all the way around to where I was before. And it may look as though it's closed the path. But if I zoom in here, you can actually see that there is a gap in the anchor points. If I grab my direct selection tool, you can see there's the anchor point there and there's an anchor point there. There's a small gap in between, meaning this is not a closed path. Now let's select everything on screen with Command or Control A and delete it. You do have some options when you're working with the brush tool, and you can control those by double-clicking on the brush. Inside of the paintbrush tool options, you have a fidelity slider here at the top. Much the same as the pencil tool, it has an accurate and smooth setting. So if I were to drag this over to the left, chances are I'm using a drawing tablet or something that allows me to make smooth paths on my own, so I don't need Illustrator's extra smoothing. If I'm drawing with a mouse, however, I might want to crank this over to smooth, making it easier for me to create more fluid designs. You can also choose to fill your new brush strokes with a color, but if you're just drawing single paths, not closed shapes, there's really no point in doing that, in my opinion. You can always expand the strokes a little bit later on to get them exactly like you want them. Here's the option for keeping the path that you draw selected. I'm going to turn this on. That way you can see as soon as I finish drawing how it works. Finally, down here at the bottom, within, basically this is asking me how close do I need to be to a path before Illustrator wants me to allow myself to edit that path using the paintbrush. In this case, it's set to 12 pixels. That means if I come within 12 pixels of an existing path, Illustrator may think that I'm trying to add to that path or change it in some way by using the brush tool. Once you finish setting up these options, hit OK. Now that I've adjusted the fidelity of my brush, let's see how smooth the paths really are. This time I'm going to make a cursive J on my artboard. Do you see the adjustment that Illustrator made there at the end to really smooth out those paths? Now I have nice, clean curves all the way around this shape. You also notice that it is selected by default. If I get within 12 pixels of that, you will also notice that that little asterisk goes away from the brush. That means that it thinks I'm still working. So I can add to that shape, just like so. If you don't like that, you can use Command or Control Z to undo. You can also bring the brush onto an existing path and brush around it like this, and it will actually reshape the path that you drew. Pretty neat. In addition to the default brush strokes, you can also use some of the custom brushes inside of Illustrator. Let's take a look at those. I'm going to go over here to the panels, and let's get the brushes panel and bring them out. I'll expand it down, and you can see some of the brushes that we have access to. I'll go ahead and delete this path that I have here. Then I'll grab my brush tool, and I'll switch to something like this cat's tongue brush. Then I'll come out and I'll just paint with it really quick. That way you can kind of see what it's able to do. So it gives it a more realistic, almost painting-like feel. We also have the ability to use images in our brushes. So I could have an image, in this case it's a leather seam, and as I'm drawing, Illustrator is going to apply a pattern to that, making it look as though there's an actual leather seam being used on my design. You also have access to several brush libraries inside of Illustrator. If you go to the bottom of the brushes panel, you can find the brush libraries menu. Inside of the brush libraries menu are things like arrows, artistic brushes, borders, bristle brushes, decorative, image brushes, vector packs, and Wacom 6D brushes. These are my favorite brushes in the default brushes set. Go ahead and open up the 6D art pen brushes. These are some of the best things for representing true ink on paper looks. These will also mimic calligraphy pens in many ways. You can hover over these to see exactly what they do. So like for this one, it's an art brush, light 17 points. And you can see it's kind of a flat tipped brush. So if I start drawing with it, it looks a little rough at first, but then you can see it actually mimics how that pen would turn in my hand if I were making that type of shape. It's pretty cool. Same with some of these other ones here. If I just make a shape here, you can kind of see some of the thicker ones and that kind of stuff. So you get that little taper around the edges of things like that. Makes it really easy to create hand-drawn looks in Illustrator. All right, let's select all of those and remove them. In addition to these brushes, you can also use brushes from other people. There are tons of resources online, including the Adobe Creative Cloud add-ons page, where you can find brush packs for Adobe Illustrator, making it super easy for you to customize your artwork. And if you're using an iOS device, you can use the new mobile application Adobe Brush, which allows you to create brushes on the fly using your iPhone and then bring those in via Creative Cloud libraries to be used inside of Illustrator. Brushes are a really powerful thing. Whether you're an artist or a designer or you're trying to get into the fashion world, brushes can be the key to unlocking your true creativity in this digital space. One of the luxuries that we have in the physical world is the fact that when we draw something on paper, we can easily get rid of it by using an eraser. And the same holds true in the digital space, but it works a little bit differently than you might think. So in this movie, I'm going to show you how to use the eraser tool inside of Illustrator. Let's go over to the Tools panel and let's find the eraser tool. And the eraser tool is actually located in the same toolbox as the scissors. You can find the eraser by clicking on it or by pressing Shift and the letter E on your keyboard. Once you have the eraser selected, you can control the size of the eraser by tapping the bracket keys on your keyboard. So the right bracket key is going to increase the size of the eraser. Right now I'm tapping the right bracket key and you can see that the eraser is getting larger and larger. If I tap the left bracket key, the eraser gets smaller. The eraser in Illustrator works on a basis of what you have selected. So if you have a given path selected and you want to erase something off of it, only that path will get erased. However, if you have no artwork selected when you start using the eraser tool, that means everything that's underneath that piece of artwork that you're erasing is also going to be erased. So for instance, if I was trying to shave some of the black off of these glasses right here, if I didn't have the glasses selected, I would actually be erasing part of his face as well. Not good. So in this case, let's go ahead and grab our selection tool and let's click on this figure. When we click on the figure, you'll notice that it's a group. So let's go ahead and isolate it by double clicking. Once we get into isolation mode, select the hair at the top. What I want you to do is grab the eraser tool and then basically give him a haircut. Get rid of this little peak at the top of his head. Here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to zoom in And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eraser tool, click, and drag across. And when I do that, Illustrator automatically reshapes the path. You'll notice here that I gave a little bit of a point right there. I can round that off by shrinking the size of my brush and then just going right over that particular area. So I'll follow the contour of the head, something kind of like that. Then I'll jump out, exit isolation mode, and zoom out so I can see the finished result. So there we go. We've given him a haircut and we didn't do any damage to anything else. That's usually a lot easier than going in and trying to manipulate anchor points, at least where I'm concerned. So I actually use the eraser tool to refine my artwork a lot. Anytime I have a path that's complicated or that has several anchor points that I just don't feel like manipulating, I'll get a small eraser brush and I'll go in and just quickly and easily brush out all of the parts that I don't need. It's a great way to refine your artwork without having a big headache. It's finally time to show you my absolute #1 favorite tool in all of Illustrator. It's called the Shape Builder tool. And this thing really blows away all of the tools we've been using so far to create complex pieces of artwork. Why? Because it's the most visual way I've ever seen to create paths in Illustrator. Let's take a look at how it works. First off, let's zoom in on this arrow in the top left-hand corner of the screen. What we want to do is basically turn this into a single shape, right? We have a rectangle and we have a triangle, but together they make up an arrow. And we need a way to merge those. But I don't want to have to go through the setup of using compound paths, or I don't want to get into the Pathfinder window and then I have to figure out which mode to use, blah, blah. That's just not something I want to do. So I'll select these and then I'll go over and grab the Shape Builder tool. And you can get to the Shape Builder tool by pressing Shift and the letter M, as in Mary, on your keyboard. Once I select that, you will notice that when I bring my cursor out into the window, a little highlight appears on the shapes. That's indicating the area of the shape that I'm going to be affecting if I use the Shape Builder on that particular part. If I want to join two pieces of artwork together, all I have to do is draw across them with the Shape Builder tool. In previous versions of Illustrator, the Shape Builder tool only worked in straight lines, meaning I would have to draw a straight line from here to here in order to make it work. But with the latest version of Adobe Illustrator CC, all I have to do is simply draw anywhere I want, just like that. A quick little stroke, and all of that artwork is now one single shape. How cool is that? Let's pan over here and let's take a look at the heart. The heart's going to work much the same way. However, when I hover over it, nothing's happening. Why not? It's because you have to have the two pieces of intersecting artwork selected prior to using the Shape Builder tool. So, hold down the Command key on the Mac, the Control key on the PC, and just draw a selection around the heart. Once you have a selection, let go of the Command key or the Control key. That's going to let you go right back to the Shape Builder tool. If I want to merge these together, I'll just draw right across them, like so. Pretty simple. All right, let's pan down, and let's go over here. You can probably tell that this is going to eventually be a fish, but you might not know exactly how we're going to get there. So first off, let's make a selection by holding down Command or Control and selecting it. We already know how to combine shapes, so to add the tail to the fish, I'll just draw very quickly across those shapes like so. But I haven't really shown you how to subtract shapes yet. It's actually pretty easy. Hold down the Option key on the Mac and the Alt key on the PC. You'll notice when I do that the plus sign turns into a minus. All you have to do is hold down that Option or Alt key while you're drawing, and it will automatically remove any objects that you draw over. So in this case, let's give this fish a little bit of color. Let's just add a little bit of, let's make him green. And there you can see I punched a hole through the eye, cut out the mouth, and added the tail. All right, our last challenge. Over here on the right-hand side, the magical linking rings. This is my favorite exercise. I love how cool this is. Let's go ahead and select this. And let's grab the Shape Builder tool. Now, it's totally up to you how you make the rings interact with each other. So I'm going to let you have a little bit of freedom here, but I'll walk you through my process for doing this. The reason I love the Shape Builder so much now is because previously it was kind of a challenge for me to do something like this because of the fact that it only worked in straight lines. Now, though, I can draw just within the confines of these circles. Because it's a free-form drawing tool now, it makes it so much easier for me to do this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this ring overlap this ring down here. So we're just going to draw right across there. There we go. Now we're going to have this ring go under this other ring. So we're going to draw right across there. Then it's going to go over this ring, under this ring. Then over here, this one is going to overlap, just like so. And then finally, this one will have it overlap like that. Now, if you make a mistake, like there, for instance, I didn't link that properly, just Command or Control Z, undo, and it'll automatically allow you to redo whatever you were doing. So now I have linked those rings together. I did nothing but have circles on screen. I didn't draw anything more complex than a circle. All I did was use the Shape Builder tool to link all of these together. And these are just now individual shapes. You can see as I click on them, they're all individuals, and I could start assigning colors to them. So let's do that, just so you can see how it works. So I'll click this one here, and let's make this one yellow. And then we'll click the other part of it, make it kind of the same yellow. Then we'll do this one, we'll make it kind of a light blue. And then the bottom one here, we'll make it red. There we go. So now you see, they're all just individual shapes the Shape Builder is creating, and that is all there is to it. So really and truly, you're only limited by your own imagination here. Think in terms of basic shapes and how you can turn those basic shapes into something really cool and complex just by drawing over it with this tool.